Hey guys, Kristen Leak here. Today I'm here with my friend Theo. He also has a YouTube channel that you guys need to check out, and I'll post the links below in the description box. But today we are just going to talk about coding boot camps and just share our experience. I went to Tech Talent South last year, and Theo went to Coding Dojo. And yeah, it's just going to be a casual talk, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, hey guys. Thanks for introducing me. I'm Theo. I work as a software engineer, and I attended Coding Dojo in Burbank, California, back in 2015. And now I'm out in South Carolina working as a software engineer, and I have about a year of experience. So, yeah, let's get started.
Cool. So I guess explain to them why you went out to South Carolina after being in California.
So I finished my boot camp around November 2015, and I was, doing the job search before that, and just found, especially outside of California, outside of moving to San Francisco, which I wasn't too keen on, just for how expensive it was,
Yeah.
that it was still super competitive to find a job in California, and I just had a few offers back on the East Coast, and one of them South Carolina, and just for a combination of cost of living, experience, and the fact that the company was more of a startup feel, and I'd be working in a really small team, all contributed to wanting to move out there, just because I thought with all of that it would be a good experience. So yeah, that's why I moved out here.
Cool. You're close to me, which is neat. We'll have to meet up sometime. So that's interesting because I'm a freelancer and I often get the question, how long does it take to get a job after boot camp? How long did it
Yeah.
take you? What was that process like?
To be honest, I started applying for jobs like the minute I actually started the boot camp. So I guess you could say it probably took me like 6 or 7 months from the time I started applying.
Okay.
From the time I finished the boot camp, yeah, I guess like around 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And I guess it varies for everyone. Again, like I was saying, it's super competitive in California, and it's only going to get more like that with the flux of people coming from boot camps more and more each year. But I don't know, my particular cohort, my class, I think there were, out of like 30 people there, like 7 or 8 of us got a job within like 3 months, and I don't know about everyone else, just because I didn't keep up with the rest of them. But yeah, I don't know. I think it depends. If you're willing to relocate, even like outside of the city that you're living in, and then you'll have an easier time. But I don't know, if you're not willing to relocate at all, I think that will contribute to extending that time period based on like where the jobs are and
Hmm.
like, what's available.
Yeah, I think 3 months seems to be the average of for people in my cohort. A lot of people found it 3 months. Some people got a job like before boot camp ended
Yeah.
and a week after. It was pretty neat to see that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think only one guy from my boot camp got a job right before it ended, and he also had prior experience as a web developer. So I don't know. I'm guessing that probably contributed to it. But yeah, everyone else that I knew, if they got a job, was somewhere in between that 3 month mark. Um,
Hmm.
but a lot of people, though, who did get jobs quickly had that prior experience. So I don't know. I think it depends on a variety of factors.
And you had 30 people, you said, in your class?
About 30 people, yeah.
Okay, my class was a bit smaller. I think we had about 12,
Okay,
maybe
well,
14.
and then you said everyone out of there got a job?
I know there are a couple people who are still looking.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a few people that I'll see still on like LinkedIn from my cohort that are still looking, and like I don't know, I think it's just tough, especially like I said. I think the biggest thing for me was willing to look outside of California, and like that's a sort of like deal breaker for a lot of people that aren't willing to relocate. But my whole thing was I just wanted to get into the industry and gain experience. So
Hmm.
like to me, it felt like that was a good sacrifice to make to enter.
Yeah, and I know some of my colleagues end up getting jobs that weren't developer jobs. Like, I have one friend who's now in DevOps,
Okay.
and another friend. No, she does front end. Another friend does more graphic design kind of work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. For my own cohort, everyone that got a job got employed as a developer or
Developer.
software
Okay.
engineer. Yeah, but I heard of other people, like at other locations, that like in Seattle or San Francisco, that work like as like product managers. So I guess it can vary.
Oh
I don't know.
yeah.
That was kind of a deal breaker for me. Like after doing all that coding, yeah, I wanted to go to a job and do coding. I don't think I would be happy just being like QA or you know, design or DevOps or something like that. But I mean, again, if you just want to break in,
Did you already know that you liked back end? Like before you started boot camp, did you know that's what you were into? Because for me, I it was not easy for me.
um, I going into the boot camp, I really didn't have any experience. We had some pre-coursework, and before doing that, I had written a few Python scripts in college, like just a basic tip calculator, really nothing, and taken a like web design, very basic HTML class in high school. So I had never done any work with databases or backend or servers at all. So I wouldn't say I really knew it until I got to this job, and then I was, I'm pretty much the lead front end developer on the team there, and for the projects that I work on, and I sort of just realized like after having to, deal with all the different browsers and make everything compliant, it's kind of a headache sometimes as opposed to back end. Principles don't really change, and you're not having to deal with the cross browser issues that you're
Oh
bound running in
gosh,
when you have
yeah.
to test against like a ton of devices. Yeah, so I don't know, but ultimately I think I just like full stack. I think front end a lot of times can just be sort of a mental, I don't know, reliever as opposed to doing a lot of hardcore logic and back end stuff. So they both have their pros.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went in thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be totally full stack when I get out of here, and I realized I'm more inclined to do front end. It comes more naturally, and me personally, I believe that when you are just starting, you should hone in those skills that you're naturally good at, so you can accelerate faster, and then go back to your weaknesses after, you land that job or get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think front end is rewarding more quickly, or like you can see, your results a lot faster just because of how it is. You're doing all the visuals, but in terms of like getting jobs, I think everyone that I knew that got a job didn't. I don't think there was a single person that went into being a back end developer like straight away. I think there's a good reason for that. I don't, especially being so new or so junior. I think it would be hard to just have a company like trust you with all of their back end stuff. But
Actually, a couple of my colleagues got a job at the same place. It's like a cloud software company, and they're like junior back end developers. They
okay, yeah.
it was really neat for them because they hired a bunch of junior devs. Like it was just a perfect time for them to apply for a job, and
Yeah.
then they brought in Tech Talent South to teach them PHP. So
Oh,
half of the day they would be in class, and half of the day they'd be at the office. I was thinking that's a pretty sweet setup
yeah.
right there.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it. I didn't know if anyone went straight into back end, but I guess it depends on the size of the company, or it could. I think
Mhm.
definitely at a smaller company, like I don't know, starting junior, like right on like back end or making him just a back end developer without like being there for a while. I don't know if they would do that, but again, it just depends.
And what did Coding Dojo specialize in as far as curriculum? Like, what are they known
Um,
for
yeah. What are they looking for? Or what are
or
they?
known for?
Oh, no, for
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So Coding Dojo. When I went there, their sort of I guess purpose or curriculum was to teach 3 full stacks in 3 months, and so the stacks that I did were mean stack, and then lamp stack, and then at the end we did Ruby on Rails. So those are the stacks, but yeah, that's what they're known for, choosing like 3 different stacks.
Oh
And
dang.
yeah, so it's a lot. Again, there's pros and cons to that. If I did it again, I think I'd go to one and just learn one language, because I think after you learn so many things, like your knowledge gets spread too thin, and I'd rather be like not a master at one thing, but definitely have a stronger grasp of like a few things than just try and like dabble in everything.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. At TTS, we did a lot. So
Yeah,
they're known for Ruby on Rails, and so that was our major focus. But we also did JavaScript, SQL, jQuery. Uh, we did
yeah,
a lot with APIs, and
yeah,
our boot camp I think was shorter than yours, right?
yeah. I mean, mine was about 3 months, a little bit over.
Okay, mine was 2 months. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we did all of that stuff too, like really full stack web development. But I'm just saying that, yeah, I think there comes a point, especially if you're trying to cram it all into 3 or 2 months. Like you gotta,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it'd be better to sort of hone in, maybe even just two stacks. You know?
But yeah, I completely agree. It's
Yeah.
definitely more beneficial when there's just a single focus. But then, when I think about it, I had no clue what I wanted to study. So at the
Yeah.
same time, I realized, okay, I am not an SQL database person. Like ultimately, I just can't.
Yeah.
Unless I
No, it's
have to, absolutely.
yeah, it's good to have exposure to all of
Mm-hmm.
that. I think, but I don't know. Maybe also like some sort of specialization would be cool. Like, and then I look at like other coding boot camps like Hack Reactor, and pretty sure all they do is JavaScript. And I mean, given their reputation, like I'm pretty sure they're known as like the best ranked coding boot camp in the country, if not like the world. So it's like there's an example where they're focusing on just like one technology, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously doing full stack with it. And I don't know, it seems to work for them. So I
They
don't know.
seem really selective. I recently spoke to someone who applied there and didn't get in, and she was telling me about the test that she had to do.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard it's pretty selective. I've heard it's like 5% acceptance or something
Oh,
like that.
wow. Okay, yeah, no wonder.
I've
Yeah.
also heard or like read reviews that a lot of people that get accepted there already have like prior work experience, like either as a developer, like product manager, or some sort of technical job in like San Francisco.
What do you think the point is? I mean, if you already have a technical background, I wonder why you would invest in a coding boot camp.
Uh,
You think it's just to expedite, which, you're learning?
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question because I had the guy in my boot camp that got a job right before it ended. He probably had like 10 years of like freelance experience, like doing PHP and HTML and CSS and JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
And from what he told me, he went there to learn like new technologies, because
Oh, okay.
if you have that experience, you might not know where to get started with like brand new stuff. So I guess that could be it. But yeah, I don't
That's a
know.
good
I guess if
point.
you already had like a job where you were using all that stuff, it wouldn't make sense. But if you're using, more I don't know, dated technologies, you want to like get up to date, then you could go there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point because companies do higher education, for people. Mm.
Yeah, I think like people always say you can be self-taught and still get one of these jobs. I think it's definitely true. I'd say like the two difficulties that come with that is one, I feel like you really better know like what to learn, and like I mean I don't say that to be mean. I just think like you have to have a clear path of like what you're going to learn and like what jobs you're going to apply to. That was one of the reasons I went to a coding boot camp because like I wanted to learn how to code, but I didn't really have anyone around me that sort of could tell me like, oh, this is what you need to learn. So I didn't really have that direction. And then two, I would say you know having that like completion or certificate from a school. I feel like it does mean more than just like being self-taught. I feel like especially if the school has a reputation, then you have that as opposed to just take my word for it. I'm self-taught. I mean, yeah, you can have projects, and if you're pretty big on open source, then I think that would weigh just as heavily. But I think again, those are the pros of the boot camp.
Oh, definitely. I agree with those. And also, I want to add in how boot camps often have relationships with companies in your city,
Yeah,
and they can introduce you. You just have to ask the right questions after the boot camp once you figure out, what what position that you want and say, do you know someone with this type of company? I want to be mean stack developer.
Yeah. Did your boot camp like bring in any employers, or like how did that work in terms of like did they have like a career services department or any of that?
They brought in some people. They brought in recruiting companies that we talked to and help prepared us with their resumes. But we also went on company tours,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
I would always add them on LinkedIn afterwards, and I would send them a follow up message, and then add them on Twitter, and I would just network and keep up with them. And I
Yeah.
actually got an interview for an internship that way. It was pretty sweet.
Okay. That's
Mm.
cool. Yeah. My boot camp, the location I went to, it was the first cohort there, so they're still getting their like career services figured out. So
Okay.
like they brought in a few people, but their like main location is in Seattle, and I guess they bring in a lot more employers up there. But in terms of like what we had, they brought in again like a few recruiting firms, and then I'll still get emails every now and then. But I don't know. It really just it depends. It seems like that's one part of the sort of boot camp industry that is like lacking a lot. The sort of career services and like finding realistic jobs for like graduates, especially if you don't have any prior experience. Because I'll still see
Mm-hmm.
a lot of jobs that they send out that will say 3 5 years of experience. It's like I think I'm good, but it's like I don't want to jump into, or at least when I was first looking, I didn't want to jump into an interview that already wanted me to have 5 years of experience. I did that a few times, and it was just like, this is not fun. Like, I want a
Yeah.
realistic job, not one that wants me to have 5 years of experience when I've only been learning for like 3 months. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I also wish that boot camps would help with building confidence afterwards because during the program you're breaking code all the time and it really messes with your head
Yeah.
and then towards the end it's like I don't know. I've been talking to a lot of people lately who are struggling with confidence while job hunting.
It's tough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I probably interviewed like, I mean, I'm really persistent that way. So like I probably interviewed, I don't know, maybe like 50 or 60 phone screens, and like at the end of the day, like when I did get my offers, I think I probably had like really only like two or three like real offers, and then the other ones were just like it either just wasn't like worth it in terms of the move, or just like it wasn't like really doing coding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah, you got to go through. At least I went through a lot. There were some people that told me they interviewed at just like two or three places and already got an offer. And it's like that's awesome if you can get that. I didn't like have that like luck or whatever you want to call it, but I mean, I think yeah, that's definitely a real thing. Like having that confidence, especially in an industry where, um, especially where I was interviewing in California, you are kind of expected to have a very large breadth of knowledge, even if you're not good at the technologies. You're still supposed to like have heard of them or like know what everything is used for. So it's like I don't know. Yeah, that's different than like a lot of other fields. I don't think you're expected to know that many different things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Especially in Silicon Valley.
yeah, so I didn't really interview too many places in Northern California, but just like California in general or the West Coast. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a big technology hub, so it's pretty competitive.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah,
It's
but
funny looking back because I used to live out there.
I don't know. I mean, I knew a few people that applied up there, and the one thing that they said was different was they were more hardcore on like algorithm challenges and like whiteboarding, whereas like a lot of the other, pretty much all the other jobs I applied for, they never. I think there's like one or two that like wanted me to explain an algorithm to them over the phone, which was kind of weird. But um, there wasn't ever like any in-person interviews where like they had me write an algorithm. There were some where
Mm-hmm.
they wanted me to write code, but it seemed like that's the differentiator in jobs in Northern California. They're really hardcore on like whiteboarding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how it is like in Charlotte.
I don't know if it's the jobs that I applied to. I mean, I didn't apply to many because I've been sticking with freelance. I just apply to jobs if it's like my dream job. And the interviews have been very non-technical. It seemed to focus just on culture fit
Yeah.
and what my passion is and how I work with people. But I'm applying to mostly design, client facing jobs.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I got a lot of interviews as well, especially if it was a smaller company. They would just like want to know what projects you've done, what you're interested in, and like
Mm-hmm.
I like that more obviously because it's not as like I feel like it's kind of ridiculous to like judge someone's skills completely just because if they can't solve an algorithm. I mean, I understand the process for like
Mm-hmm.
weeding people out, and I think it is a good way, but at the same time, I also feel like there needs to be an aspect of like, you know, what are you interested in? What have you done? What do you know about these different technologies? Because I feel like that also shows, how like competent someone is, or like if they're actually interested in the job.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of articles floating around lately about that, how it's unreasonable and unnecessary to do whiteboard testing.
Yeah,
And I guess looking back, I'm trying to think to my friends who had job hunted. My one friend recently had a job interview, and he said he had to do the whole fizz, buzz, fizz sort of
yeah,
thing. And I heard loops, doing the loops for whiteboarding is pretty common.
yeah. I mean, those are basic.
Yeah, so
The hardest,
it's not really.
yeah, the hardest one I ever got on the phone was like the guy was asking me to walk him through a binary search tree, and I did it, but it was just like it's kind of weird to like sort of explain that over the phone. It was something you would write out more, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I can play devil's advocate on like on whiteboarding challenges and the importance of it. I think a lot of it comes down to like um, compensation and responsibility. Like a job out in San Francisco, if you're looking at like maybe not Google, but a big tech company out there, if they're gonna spend like $200,000 on you, like you better be able to solve an algorithm. Otherwise, it's like that's like some dead weight loss, And it's like I know that sounds cool, but it's like that's a lot of money. Like you need to be proficient and like good at what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
And
then
also, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, the other thing is just like maybe not the algorithms, but like you're saying loops or just like basic syntax. It's like I mean, I've read other articles where like people would comment and they're like, oh, I'd be outraged. They're usually like older programmers or developers, and like they'll say, oh, I'd be outraged, if I went into an interview and they asked me to write some code. But it's just like I don't see why. I mean, that's like what you do on the job. Like if you can't do that, why should they, pay you a lot of money? If you can't even do like basic things, maybe not algorithms, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't even show, how to do a for loop. Like I don't know. It seems pretty ridiculous to think that they would just hire you.
It kind of reminds me of SAT. You know, I really like hearing about companies who will look at your portfolio and then they would ask to see your code and ask for you to walk them through it. I think that makes more sense
Yeah,
because it's all about problem solving and your thought process.
yeah, I see what you're saying. I think though, like, maybe another good way is like um, to, give the candidate like a take-home assignment, something that they can build,
My
and then
friend
show.
actually did that.
Yeah, I think that's a decent test.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, you could potentially cheat, but
Hmm.
it's like maybe not. I mean, depending on the timeline and everything, like I say, like even if you didn't cheat, it really wouldn't be cheating. You'd probably just be really good at finding out information online, which to me shows
That's
that
what everyone does, though. That's what every
yeah,
developer does.
I think I think that's like one of the most important things I've found out
Hmm.
at my job is like you don't really need to know everything, or not even as much as you think. Starting this out, you really just have to be resourceful. Like to me, that's one of the most important things. Like if you can look up something you don't know and find it in a relatively short amount of time, I think that's like I don't know. That's probably someone that I would hire like without thinking too much about it because to me that shows like they might not be an expert at everything, but they can find out what they don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I've actually heard that same thing from seasoned developers who remind me that you don't have to know every single thing. Like you're gonna forget things, and you have to refer back to what you've already seen before. But as
Yeah.
long as you know how to figure it out, like you said, be resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's
I
a
think
really
like
good
there's some
quality.
things. Yeah, for sure. There's some things that you should know again, like basic syntax and like
Oh yeah.
understanding how functions work and different scope, whatever, and like depending on your job, obviously, like the basic necessities. But at the same time, like I don't think you should be expected to know like the full documentation of a specific framework. And if the company really wants you to know that, I would probably like shy away from that because that kind of sounds pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Like,
And
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
when I reflect back to coding bootcamp, I think about all the times many of us would stress about memorizing everything perfectly. And now that I'm out of that environment, I realize, okay, no, it's not realistic at all for the amount of things that we have to learn on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, that's. I feel like that would like. Yeah, that's kind of taught though in the boot camp. Like, I feel like they do stress like how much stuff you need to know, and like, I think it's good to be like over prepared in a sense. But I think once you start working at a job, granted, maybe not at a startup. I think at a startup you would sort of feel that stress of like you do need to know all this stuff, especially if you're on a really small team. You probably do have to be more than the developer. You also have to do DevOps, etc. So like that probably is a realistic feeling. But I think at like a smaller size company or a big company, like yeah, you don't need to know everything.
Mm-hmm. So I got a message from a girl named Chloe on Facebook, and she was telling me how she's interested in Dojo, and she wanted me to ask you these questions. I'm gonna put them on the side
Okay.
for you to see. I'm just gonna paste it, and I will chime in and share my experience too.
Yeah. So for the first one, you want me to read the question too?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay, yeah. So the first one is how many hours did you put in each and every day, not just the hours in boot camp, but your own individual time? So I I woke up at 5 a.m. every day.
Oh my gosh, you remember this? I don't know if I can remember.
It was kind of rough. So I woke up at 5 a.m. and I took the train to Burbank from where I am in Ventura. That was about an hour and 15. And usually on the train ride, I would um, open up my laptop and study or do an assignment or just read some more code. And um, and then after that, pretty much or I guess I would take it at 6, so get there 7. So from 7 to what was it, like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I'd be at the boot camp. But the boot camp would really only be from like 9 to 4, 9 to 5. So I'd be there from like 7 to 4, 7 to 5. And then I'd take the train back, and get back home 6 or 7, depending on when I left. And so yeah, pretty much like about give or take at least 12 hours a day. And then at night, sometimes like if I wasn't just like burnt out on looking at code all day, I would do some more. So usually anywhere, yeah, from like 10, 12 hours a day on the weekdays. And then on the weekend, I'd say another, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours each day. So
Did
I guess
you have, I'm sure you had homework, but did you do homework during the classroom times? Or did you have to do it outside of classroom?
it depended on like what we were doing. Towards the end of the boot camp, it was more like everyone was at like a different pace. So it was kind of disorganized in that sense, but it was like people would still be, learning a more, I don't know, basic concept than other people who were working on more advanced projects. And so it really just depend like who you were working with. But usually I was able to do my projects or my assignments in class. Basically, the schedule was in the morning we had like an hour of just like algorithms, and then after that we would have like an hour or two of lecture, and then the rest of it would be working on assignments. Then usually in the afternoon there would be like a demo of an assignment or a project that you could go and watch one of the instructors like code from scratch if you were stuck on something. But I'd say a good amount of the time was devoted to just knocking out assignments and completing projects. So yeah, most of it was done there in class.
That's pretty cool. I believe mine, gosh, I probably should check the website before. I think ours was from 8 till 12 maybe. And then we had office hours for a couple hours. So I guess
Yeah.
until 2 o'clock. So most of us stayed till 2 because the teacher would be there to help us with our homework assignments. But
Hmm.
then I would get lunch with someone in my cohort and then I'd go back to finishing my homework.
Yeah.
And I remember there were times when I would stay up till like 10 or 11 at night. I used to stay up later and I just forced myself to just stop at 10 o'clock because it was making me exhausted.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. It really depended on the person. Like I feel like I left earlier than a lot of people, but that was because I had to catch the train.
Right.
But then on the train, pretty much, I would say there's only a handful of days that I didn't keep studying. Most of the days I would just open up my laptop and keep working on code. But I don't know. It depended on the person. But I'd say like people that were like really into it, and the people that I saw who got jobs generally were putting in like I'd say close to 60 or 70 hours a week. Um, I don't know. Yeah, the people that just came and like did the bare minimum. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It kind of reflects in like
Mm-hmm.
not getting a job.
We had those people too who would just come and sit down, and even during office hours, they wouldn't even stay. They would just peace out.
Yeah, I don't know. Like bash
Oh,
too many people, but
I mean, if they have a hold on it, they have a hold on it. But I
yeah,
just want Chloe to know that not everyone, not everyone puts in 60 hours a week.
yeah,
It all
no, there were
depends on what you think you need to do.
yeah, I mean, there were like everyone was nice there. I just think there were certain people that like still to this day I don't really understand like, why they went to the boot camp because I don't know like they didn't like put in the time or anything, but I don't know maybe they had other things. I feel like if you're gonna do something like that, you got to commit to it, especially for how competitive it is to find like a good job afterwards. Like if you're really just putting in the bare minimum, I don't know. I feel like that's not a good move.
Yeah,
Um,
to piggyback on that, I remember we had a student who had to leave, and that just made me realize that either life can get in the way while you're in boot camp, or
yeah,
some people just find it overwhelming, or some people realize it's not for them.
yeah, we only had one guy leave, but that was the first day. I think he just decided that it wasn't for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think a lot of it was. I think the reason he left was because like the location I went to was the first one that was open, and again, it was kind of disorganized still because they were getting it set up.
Okay.
So maybe he like sent that. But yeah, no one else left. I'd say towards the end of the program, there were people again, the people that were sort of doing the bare minimum. It seemed like they did like progressively less, or they left earlier, or they just like wouldn't even show up some days. And I don't know. Yeah, so it really just depended on like each individual person.
Mm-hmm.
But so next question is, what are some tips to prepare me for the dojo? I would say, I guess I'm kind of a bad example of this. I would tell people to prepare ahead of time, even though I didn't. So
I was the same way.
yeah, I
I
really
didn't.
didn't. I know people that are watching or reading articles, and I know I've read other people who prepare for like either they have prior experience or they'll prepare for at least a few months beforehand. And I did the pre-course work, and I think that was an area in my boot camp that definitely started like this mismatch of people being at different paces, even from the beginning of the boot camp. Because we went in there, we started day one, and they had expected you to have already completed that pre-course work, but some people would say, oh, we didn't get the email with the pre-course work, and I don't know. To me, that's kind of lazy. Like if you're paying that much money, like figure it out and get the pre-course work and get it done.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like definitely do all that pre-course work if you're given that. But if not, even before that, look at the curriculum of what they're teaching, and then try and find very, I guess, beginner resources for those different technologies, and and try and get maybe at least HTML and CSS down, because those really aren't that difficult. Maybe when you move into like responsive design, yeah, it's harder than it looks, but just basic HTML and CSS, like get a good grasp of those, and maybe even like some rudimentary JavaScript, and that's what I would do to prepare. Just sort of familiarize myself with the different like technology stack and languages that they're going to teach, just so that you can go in there and have more of an idea. Like I feel like I really did go in there just doing the pre-course work, and little experience other than that. So I'd say the more prepared you are, the better.
Mm.
But okay, tell me about your personal experience at this boot camp.
I think we just went over that earlier.
Okay. How hard was it to land a job? I guess we talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah, we did.
Is there anything that you wish you could have known before starting? It's definitely not as easy as, or at least for me and a lot of other people, as you think, to land a job. I wouldn't believe. I mean, I like the instructors I had, but as far as like the marketing of the boot camp, and if you go to their site and sort of, I don't think they have it on there anymore, but a lot of the boot camps will claim a pretty high, salary or employment rate. And like, yeah, like I didn't do it just for the money, right? But it's like when you see that stuff where you see like 90% of our graduates are employed after X amount of days, and then like you go through it and you realize like that's not really true, or like a lot of people that did get jobs that fast already had prior experience. It just kind of makes you, I don't know, wish you looked into that a little bit more. But not saying that changes much, but just don't expect to like get a job like you know right after you graduate or like right before. I think it's possible, and like I think I could have like worked a little bit harder on it, but at the same time, it definitely takes time, especially if you're trying to break into this industry. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's possible. I've seen it happen, but it's not common at all.
Yeah,
And I think it discourages a lot of people. And I think we need to remember that job hunting is hard regardless of where you are in your life. Like, it's always going to be difficult.
yeah. I say the biggest thing is like the job I have now on the job application. They want it set 3+ years. So like that's my experience, and I felt like a lot of times like I'm good at what I do now, but at the very beginning, I was kind of like nervous to move out here and like take a job when I had 3 months of experience into a job that wanted 3+ years. Because this is, not trying to brag, but it's like what I do. I wouldn't say it's like entry level. It's more like mid, and so I don't know. That's another thing I would sort of just wise up to the fact that I very rarely, if ever, saw jobs that said like less than 2 years of experience. And like if it said like 1 year or an internship, it just like I don't think it'd be worth it to really take that or move somewhere given like what it would pay. But yeah, so like just be prepared for that. Like if you're gonna take one of these jobs that says more than like a year or two of experience, I would just say be like ready to hit the ground running and like be a really quick learner. So just something to keep in mind.
Cool. Thank you for answering Chloe's questions. I thought it was really awesome talking to her. Well, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she's 17, 16
Okay.
or 17, and already thinking about coding boot camp, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I only knew one guy from my cohort that he had graduated high school, and then he, I guess he worked somewhere else for a few years, and I think he was like 19, and then he was in my cohort, and I think he's still like looking for a job, and so I would say based on that experience and like my own experience job hunting, I'd say the only like downside is I think it'll be maybe not for everyone, but I think it's harder even more without having like a college degree to get one of these jobs, even with like just having that boot camp experience, especially if it's not like well known. That's what I sort of saw or like read it or like talked to other people about. I think like you don't need like a college degree to get a job as like developer or software engineer, but I think like looking at different statistics and looking at people who went to the boot camp and got a job, like at least in my cohort, pretty much everyone else had at least like a bachelor's degree. So it was, I don't know, like I think there is some sort of I don't know, not that boot camp's lying, but I think I don't know. I would say most people do have like at least a bachelor's going in there. I think again, I think you can pull it off. I think it is just harder, like trying to get like a good job when all you have is like that certificate out of high school. So I don't know.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah. Why? What do you think?
I honestly haven't looked that much into it. I mean, uh, I know someone who was in my boot camp and he got a job as well. That was DevOps,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if he was a developer, but I have a friend out in San Jose who's working at Google,
Okay.
and he only has a high school diploma, but I can't remember what position he has. So I honestly I can't say because I haven't looked into it. I haven't done the research or really talked to anyone about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I think it's doable. I think it's just like with how competitive like
Hmm.
jobs are, especially even just going through like HR. A lot of times you're being weeded out, just
I
not
think
even having
I
that
think
degree.
it would be especially hard in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I think you can do it, but then when you like, if you look at people in your boot camp, I would ask how many people really just had a high school degree, like where I went. There's only
Hmm.
one guy that didn't have a bachelor's degree, and a lot of people in there even had masters. So I don't know.
Probably
Uh,
depends on the employer.
yeah, I'd say at a bigger company, I would
Hmm.
I would bet that they're not going to hire someone as to be like a software engineer or developer with just a high school degree and that certificate.
Yeah.
But I don't
Startups
know.
seem to be chill though, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I think so. I think like I said though, you just have to keep in mind like I wouldn't not apply to any of these jobs just because they say like 3 or 5 years of experience. I mean, I had some pretty like awkward interviews where I would apply for a job that said 5+ years of experience, and the interview would literally end in 10 minutes because the kind of questions they asked me, like, I just wouldn't be able to answer them. They were that advanced. Like
Oh wow.
they would interview me and like, well, yeah. So like my boot camp, a lot of times they would push like, yeah, apply to all these like senior level jobs, But it's like looking back into my own experience, I think we know, like coming out of that boot camp, you are exposed to a lot more technology than like a computer science graduate fresh out of college. I would I would argue that's probably true, but
Hmm.
at the same time, like I wouldn't let it go to your head and think that you're as good as someone with 5 years of experience, or like you have that breadth of knowledge.
Hmm.
And I would say even if you are able to pull that off, I'd say you're going to be, I don't know, kind of like hitting the ground running for like, I don't know, at least a year or something. But I mean, you can do that. I just think something to keep in mind when you look at like the sort of seniority of the position.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, big question. If you had to start all over, would you do it all over again? Would you go to coding boot camp?
uh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question. I think I would have tried to go to a different one.
Hmm.
I think if I did again, I would probably try and go to like Hack Reactor because from what it seems like, they are pretty like true on their like job placement numbers, and like people actually do go to work at like pretty well known like companies in San Francisco, and like I don't know, I think that's pretty awesome. But I don't know if I would do it all over again. I mean, I guess the alternative was like just sort of trying to work another job and then like teach myself on the side. But it's like
Hmm.
I think I'm pretty disciplined, but I don't know if I have like that much discipline that I would have sat down 10 hours a day and done that on my own.
I
But
couldn't.
yeah, I knew someone. I don't know if he's employed now, but someone from my cohort. It seemed kind of crazy to me, but it was like he graduated Coding Dojo and then he went to Hack Reactor after, and it was just like I don't know. That seems pretty intense, like two coding boot camps. But I think his whole thing was
Woo.
like, sorry, what was that?
I said, woo.
I think his whole thing, we were talking about it on LinkedIn one time, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do front end. And like I was telling you, a lot of the times coming out of one of these boot camps, in my experience, they're not just going to let you jump right in to be a back end developer. There are exceptions, but I
Mhm.
think for the most part, you're going to be doing front end. And so like he was like, I don't want to just do front end, and looking at the course curriculum for Hack Reactor, a lot of it is more back end, or it's not more back end focused, but they definitely dive more into like using Node and I guess just more full stack JavaScript. So I don't know. I guess for that reason, that's why he did it. But so
Okay.
yeah, maybe I'd consider another boot camp. Or the other thing, um, for a while after I graduated my boot camp, when I was on the job search and I just wasn't having success, I actually thought about like, maybe I just like, you know, go find another job in like the field that I studied, or like something else. Just in the meantime, just keep living at home, and I will go and get like a master's in computer science. And I don't, I don't know if that's like a better route either. I still feel like what they're teaching you in like a computer science curriculum isn't always like what you're going to use on a job. But I definitely ran into a lot of companies that wouldn't look at me because I didn't have a bachelor's in computer science. I think like
Oh,
after you get a certain amount of experience, like the experience with Trump not having the degree, but like just starting out, if you don't have any prior experience or like any job experience, because I was 22, 23 now, and like pretty much just out of college, like it is really tough to just like go up to someone and show them like, hey, I don't have a computer science degree. I just out of college and I have this certificate from this coding school of 3 months. Like, you want to you take a chance on me, like
that's
so I
why
can.
you don't start off like that.
No, I don't see it like that, but I'm trying to see it from like an employer's perspective, and like I
Uh-huh.
would run into that a lot of just like as much as people don't want to admit, there is a pretty strong bias against like not having a
Yeah,
computer science degree. So I don't know.
I
Just
can, yeah.
trying to be realistic with people. I don't know. So I also think the like boot camp market. I think even when I went in 2015, I think I was still like 2 years too late. I think like from what I've read, if you went in like 2013, you could go to Silicon Valley and they'd almost be like begging you to work there. And now it's gotten so competitive because there's just boot camps all over, and there's so many graduates that it's just saturated, and it's way more competitive to
Yeah.
break in.
That's why I'm all about selling yourself
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
and
do.
just like saying, um, I guess how would I sell myself? Be like, I'm a freelance web developer. I've worked with WordPress, Squarespace, HTML, CSS, SAS, blah blah blah. List my toolkit, and I'm passionate about mobile, and I love design, and this is what I can bring to your team. This is what sets me apart. And then just like give them all of my confidence and optimism to where it's like I show my portfolio and it's just not not as well. Then again, I'm thinking I do have a bachelor's and master's degree, so that kind of goes into what you're saying. I don't know if that would make a difference to why no one would
Yeah,
ask me, but
yeah. I mean, you also have like prior work experience, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I think like not just breaking into this field, like I graduated college May 2015, and like I had a job that I turned down to go to the coding bootcamp, but it was like you know it's really hard to find, whether it's coding or anything, to break into any of these fields because they all want a year or two of experience. And I don't know. I didn't know most people who had that. Even if you got an internship every summer, that still doesn't add up to a year. And it's like, I don't know. So yeah, it might not just be coding. It's just like breaking in general is like really tough, especially if you don't know someone. But yeah,
Yeah, knowing someone helps. I keep telling people to network and meet people and not to just meet someone and be like, hey, are you hiring? Just develop a relationship, not just immediately try to get hired.
yeah, that's good if you can do that. I pretty much got this job like randomly in a way off of Stack Overflow job board.
Okay.
So I guess I'm like not a good example of like I networked and I got a job. But
Hey, you still got a job.
yeah, if you can do that, sure. I personally, I'll be honest, I didn't really go to any of these meetups. I kind of just like applied to a ton of jobs and like went to interviews. But I mean, yeah, I think that will work as well. I think that's a good way. Just depends on like how much time you want to spend doing that. Whereas I feel like when I was just applying at home, I could go through a ton of applications really
But
fast. So
but
it's
you
just
would probably, yeah, you would probably do more applications than someone who would try to get a job through a connection. Because oftentimes job positions open up and they do not go online. It's by word of mouth.
well, yeah. Or if you get like, if you got like one of my friends um, works at Procter and Gamble. His dad worked there, so it's like if you know someone internally, you can sort of use that to your advantage or have a referral, something like that, and it's like that's something you wouldn't obviously have if you don't have any connections there, so it's you don't really have that leg up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe I sound too negative about the job search. I want to be realistic with people. I mean, sure, some
Mm-hmm.
people might have like an easier time than others. I say I probably had an average time. I would say I guess it could have been worse. Like I didn't get any interviews, But I don't know. I say just be prepared to like be very persistent and like go through the hurdles. Maybe like any job search. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Job hunting is hard regardless, like I said. It's tough. But thank you so much for chatting with me about this. Well, not live, but recorded.
Oh yeah, sure. Is there any more questions, or is that it?
That's it. Oh, gosh.
Why
Now
would
I
you do your boot camp experience again?
do what?
Would you do it over again?
Um, yeah, I would say so. Maybe it's kind of hard because now that I'm out of boot camp, I know what I'm most interested in. So I
Sure.
may not have done a Ruby on Rails boot camp.
What would you have done? More like UI, UX?
Yeah, probably UI or maybe more of a JavaScript base. I mean, we
Yeah.
learned some JavaScript, but not not as much as we did with Ruby on Rails.
Yeah. But you would have gone to the same program.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like I may have been lucky because I've been told many times that I was in the best cohort. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that recorded, but um, we just had. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but everything was balanced. We were fortunate to have two teachers, and it was pretty much 50-50 gender wise, and everyone in my class was vocal and would ask questions. And I've heard that some cohorts are really quiet, and obviously, when you're quiet, that's when you're going to struggle because you really don't know what's going on. You're just sitting there. And why are you smiling? Was your cohort like that?
No, I was just thinking about myself. I'm like pretty introverted and pretty quiet, but I feel like I figure stuff out all the time. It's just like I said, I'm really resourceful. So like
Mm-hmm.
one thing I was thinking about towards the end of my boot camp, like I don't know, not being mean to people, but there were certain people that even like in the last week they would come up to like did you guys ever deploy anything on like Heroku?
Yeah, we use Heroku.
And it's pretty simple. It's not that hard.
Heroku was kind of buggy for us.
Well, considerably like if you ever deploy on like Azure, or
Mm-hmm.
AWS, it's a lot easier, and you can just type a few lines pretty much into the terminal and get everything set up. Maybe if you need to configure something else, you need to go into the site. But anyways, like there were just stuff that you could solve like just googling most of the time. Like even if you can't figure it out, most of the time within 5 minutes you can go on Google and say Heroku error, whatever it is,
Oh, yeah.
and you can figure it out. But it's like there was just I don't know, still people that would either ask me or the instructors that like in the last week, and it's like it just made me think again. It's like I don't think you even need to be like that great of like a coder or like developer. You just learn how to use Google, or learn how to search the web, or like be resourceful. It's
Mm-hmm.
2016
You kind
and
of have to learn you have to know what you're asking for, though. You have to type in the right thing. Because I think that took me a few weeks to get the hang of the verbiage and the
yeah,
vocabulary.
maybe that's what I was tying it to how I'm tying it together is that there was another thing like just using GitHub or like another thing people would ask me even on the last week was like how do I push this repository, push this commit to GitHub, and like, but it was because like they would always ask the instructors whenever they got stuck. So like, I don't feel like you learn to an extent like that, but I feel like you kind of have to struggle through it yourself to understand how it works and build that muscle memory. Like we're just having them type it out and go through it all. You might pick up a little bit, but it's a very passive method of retaining what you're trying to learn, and like not trying to promote my videos or anything, but like when I make videos on YouTube, it's like that's why I do it from scratch, not just to show people, hey, look at what I can build, but also it's like I want to strengthen my own skills, and you're forced to explain a lot more when you teach rather than when you just consume by just watching something or reading something. So
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the last thing I was going to say. What I was fortunate about with my cohort is our teacher was killer. Like he had taught 3, maybe 4 cohorts before mine, and he would make us struggle. He would make us figure out things on our own. Sometimes he wouldn't answer a question until we tried it. He made us break code, and that actually made me choose Tech Talent South over the Iron Yard. The Iron Yard was mostly JavaScript based kind of boot camp. But when I asked him about their teacher, I met their teacher, and he was coming straight out of grad school and had only taught 1 class, not even for a semester, but just like a class, like an hour or so. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's something about a teacher who has been with multiple students and knows the way our mind thinks as someone who has never seen code. And I found that to be very valuable at Tech Talent South. So that's why I would do it all over again if it was at that same time last year.
Yeah, that's good though. Like that's one of the other things that I wasn't too much of a fan of. Like Coding Dojo, a lot of the instructors were like just prior students, and it was just like obviously you wouldn't know that until you went there. But it was I don't know. I just don't think like, especially for how much money you're spending and how much time you're spending there. Like if I did it again, yeah, I'd want to know that the instructors like actually had industry experience. Like there are some people that will come out of like a boot camp or like Coding Dojo and then go on to be instructors there, and it's like, yeah, it sounds like a cool job and everything, because you're pretty much again getting paid to teach, but I would argue like you're still not gaining like real world like industry experience. Like at a real company building a product, you're still just like teaching like a very specific curriculum. So it's like, yeah, if I did it again, I'd want to see instructors that either had like 5 years of experience actually working at a company, not just like students who went straight to instructors. I think that's like really important to be able to give more valuable experience of what it's actually like working a job.
Yeah, teacher makes a huge difference, and that's even with regular school, high school, college.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, it was good. All right. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And how can people find you? Are you on Twitter or social media at all, or you just hang out on YouTube?
Yeah, I've been on my YouTube, and then I also created a blog about 4 or 5 days ago, and that's called the JavaScriptChronicles.com. So if you want to check that out and sign up for my email list on there.
Yeah, and I'll put the links below, guys. So just check it out, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, cool. Thanks. See ya.
Yeah, bye.